Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. On the day I finalized the divorce with Grant, I didn't take either of our children with me. My 5-year-old son clung to my hand, refusing to let go. My 3-year-old daughter clung to my leg, crying uncontrollably, but I remained unmoved. Grant, standing beside me with red eyes, said I didn't deserve to be a mother. I didn't argue. 3 years later, we unexpectedly met on the street. The 3 men who had tried to keep me by their side now had another woman with them. They didn't even glance at me, walking straight past. My best friend nudged my shoulder and asked, "Do you regret it?" I smiled and said no. 5 years after, Grant secretly allowed his ex-girlfriend to live with us in our house. I had already decided that I would never look back. I never imagined that Grant, with whom I have 2 children, would have an ex-girlfriend he can't forget. He secretly brought her into our home and let her live with us for 5 years. He even had her live with my son and daughter since they were born. As a result, my mischievous 5-year-old son won't listen to anyone else. He only listens to her. My well-behaved 3-year-old daughter won't let anyone else play with her. She only needs to be coaxed to sleep by herself. At first, I didn't know. But that day, on my way to take my daughter to kindergarten alone, I saw a young couple kissing by the roadside. My daughter pointed at them curiously and excitedly told me, "Mommy, Daddy, and Aunt Laura did that too." She had only spoken halfway when she suddenly covered her mouth with her hand. If she hadn't done that, I would have thought she was just pointing and talking nonsense. But clearly my daughter had been instructed by someone. After that, no matter how I asked, my daughter kept her mouth tightly shut and refused to say a word to me. After dropping my daughter off, I went back home instead of heading to work. As soon as I entered the complex, I saw Grant's car parked downstairs. My heart sank for a moment. He'd gone to work before me today without even having breakfast. Why did he come back? And while I wasn't home, I pushed open the door and heard voices coming from inside the restaurant. "Grant, you had a bad stomach even when we were dating. If you dare to neglect your health again, I'm going to get angry." Her tone was playful and coquettish, something I never heard before. Grant took a sip of hot porridge, his voice still tinged with doting affection. All right, I'm back now, aren't I? You've got me completely under your thumb for the rest of my life." I hid behind the door, my hands trembling violently. I couldn't believe it. This was the tone Grant used when speaking to another woman. Just as I was about to push open the door, Grant watched the woman's busy figure and said with some heartache, "Laura, in my heart, you are the same as my wife. Don't put yourself in such a lowly position. I used the excuse of being your housekeeper just to get you closer to me so I could take better care of you. Don't take it seriously." The woman lowered her head. She lost her balance or was moved. She suddenly buried her face in Grant's chest and didn't get up. "Grant, I'm willing. Having you by my side and your 2 children with me makes me so happy. Isn't that right?" Over the years, I thought I'd found a truly caring person. I not only gave her a raise, but I also appreciated her help with the children and treated her like a sister. My clothes, cosmetics, bags, jewelry, she took them all and used them as she pleased. Little did she know I had been living in this house with a woman my husband had once loved for 5 years. I took a deep breath. Amidst 2 pairs of astonished eyes, I calmly spoke. "Grant, let's get a divorce. Since this marriage was a mistake from the start, my stance is to end it immediately. My life is short and my youth is short. I don't have the extra energy to waste on a wrong person. If it was a mistake, then it should be corrected, but I must have custody of both children." I thought Grant, who had kept his ex-girlfriend by his side for 5 years, would readily agree to a divorce after hearing this. I wanted to, but no. Almost the instant I barged in, a look of pain crossed his face. He immediately stepped forward and, with trembling hands, tightly embraced my shoulders, refusing to let go. It was as if I was still the only woman he truly cherished. "Lily, don't mention divorce to me. It breaks my heart whenever you do." His words sounded genuine, but I didn't believe him. I forcefully broke free from his embrace, unable to suppress the disgust in my heart. I slapped him hard. In 5 years of marriage, Grant and I had never even argued once. The man sighed softly, looking at me helplessly. "Lily, are you calm now? Can I explain? He said that Laura was, after all, a woman he had once loved. 5 years ago, Laura had a bad experience with a man and was left with nowhere to go after her divorce. He couldn't just stand by and do nothing. His explanation contained no remorse for deceiving me. Before our marriage, he still believed he was right. Laura was raised by her grandparents from a young age, and now she's all alone. If I don't support her, then no one else can. I was shocked by Grant's words. Who is Laura to him? Why should he be responsible for another woman's entire life? But I didn't want to ask anything anymore. I just watched the woman sobbing softly beside me, crying pitifully. I'll make her move out today. You can put her wherever you want, but here I find it disgusting. Upon hearing this, the man who had just been all tender instantly sharpened his gaze. You can bully him, but you can't bully the woman he loves. Is that what you mean? I turned around, took out my phone, and started calling my lawyer as I walked out. When I got home that evening, Laura hadn't left. She was still playing happily with my 2 children, who had been picked up earlier. Seeing me, she acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled at me. Lily, do you want to join us? Look how happy Nellie and Nolan are. As a woman myself, I can see through Laura's provocation. Is she taking advantage of Grant's promise to her and openly declaring war on me? Unfortunately, she's using the wrong method. I feel it's pointless to retaliate against someone who isn't worth it. I pointed to the open doorway. Laura, are you going to pack your own luggage now? Or do you want me to help you? Hearing that, I was telling Laura to leave. The son and daughter, who had been engrossed in their game, both dropped their toys and stood protectively in front of the woman, like little knights. Mommy, don't send Aunt Laura away. Daddy and I both disagree. At that moment, I saw a hint of hatred in the clear eyes of the 2 children. It was as if I had stolen something they cherished, and they were ready to fight me to the death. I blinked a few times, amused, my vision blurring slightly. Grant, that bastard, he left me completely unguarded, exposing my children to my rival's eyes. For 5 years, they spent every day together. It was impossible for them not to develop feelings. The 2 children were Laura's most powerful bargaining chip against me. Grant, who was cooking in the kitchen, came out when he heard the noise. He didn't look at me. He patted his son and daughter's heads encouragingly and praised them. Great job tonight. Dad will reward you both with a big chicken leg. My son first raised his head high, his face full of pride. My sister and I always listen to our father, even when Mom bullies Aunt Laura. We protect her. My daughter powdered her rosy lips, stared at me, and said, Mommy, if you're going to get rid of Aunt Laura, then you should get rid of Nellie and her brother too. They were on the same side, making me the only outsider in this house. It would be a lie to say I wasn't sad, but the children are still young and easily deceived. I don't blame them. From now on, both children will live with me. They will naturally know who their loving mother is. After my daughter finished speaking, Grant finally looked at me. He sighed helplessly. Lily, you've seen it yourself. The children all love Laura. Why do you have to be such a wicked mother? I don't want to argue with him about the disgusting things he's done in front of the children. He paused for a moment. This gesture led Grant to mistakenly believe that I had given in. The man took my hand and pulled out a chair for me at the table. Looking at the table laden with delicious food, I suddenly remembered Grant was always a good cook, but he rarely had the opportunity to cook for me. Aside from our 2 children's birthdays, he also missed even my important holidays when he was busy. But now, thinking back 4 or 5 years, every year on Laura's birthday, he would always leave work several hours early to come home. A feeling of unease welled up inside me. Even though we've shared a bed for 5 years, even though I've given birth to 2 children for him, is it still not as important as Laura in his heart? Suddenly, I was startled by this thought. In the end, I've fallen into the pain Grant caused me while I was still in a daze. My daughter had already sat down beside Laura. They faced me, who was standing alone, clearly separated from them. I really wanted to overturn the entire table of food in front of me, but seeing the 2 children swallowing their saliva, I still couldn't do it. Having a weakness meant I was constantly held back. I'm tired. You 2 eat. That evening, they took both children out to the movies again. I thought I'd talk to them tonight. I sat in my room waiting. Around 9 p.m., my 5-year-old son sent me a few photos using his smartwatch. They were just some quick snapshots of himself. In the background, without exception, were images of Grant and Laura holding hands. They were with my child, pretending to be a family of 4. During those 5 years of being kept in the dark, had this scene played out countless times? A feeling of disgust welled up in my throat. I quickly got up and ran to the bathroom. It was disgusting. So disgusting. When Grant came back, he was clearly smiling, but the moment he saw me, it was like he'd been stepped on. His smile vanished instantly. I ignored his guilty conscience and reached out my hand. Nolan, Nellie, come upstairs to bed with Mommy. When Laura wasn't involved, the 2 children were quite obedient. They each took one of my hands and followed me obediently upstairs. After washing up, I held my son and daughter in my arms, casually asking them, if Mommy and Daddy separate in the future, can you live with Mommy? My soft, cuddly daughter hugged me and said in her sweet, childish voice, it's okay to stay with Mommy, but you have to take Aunt Laura with you. That way Daddy will come too, and we'll be together again. My son, standing to the side, patted his sister's arm. You're such a silly little sister. If Mom and Dad separate, it means they're getting a divorce. After the divorce, Dad will definitely marry Aunt Laura and won't live with Mom anymore. My son rolled over and continued playing on his tablet with his back to me. Anyway, I'm choosing Daddy, so you choose Mommy. My daughter, hearing that I had to choose her, immediately burst into tears. I don't want Mommy anymore. I want Aunt Laura. I want to be with Daddy too. I never imagined Laura would hold such a deep place in my 2 children's hearts. Although I've been busy with work these past few years, I've never missed a moment of their lives and their growth. I don't consider myself a bad mother, but at this moment, my children's seemingly joking remark still made me feel a sense of crisis. I immediately stopped all my work and began to devote myself entirely to taking care of my children at home. Before the divorce, I had already given Grant the divorce agreement. He hasn't signed it yet, but once the cooling-off period is over, I'll apply for enforcement. The man took it, his eyes red, as if in pain. Lily, can you really be so cruel to me? Yes, I admit I hid my ex-girlfriend from you before the wedding, but aren't we already married? There's no possibility between Laura and me anymore. What are you still worried about? I watched as Grant tore up the divorce papers in his hand. He hesitated for a moment, then kicked Laura out of the house. The man's pained face froze for a moment. I could see his hesitation, inner turmoil, and even resistance, his hands hanging limply, clenched into fists. I don't know how long he remained silent before he looked up and met my eyes. Lily, I promised Laura I would take care of her for the rest of her life. If I break that promise now, I don't deserve to be a responsible man. Despite my second chance, Grant ultimately chose another woman. Fine, let's get a divorce then. I turned away, a mocking smile playing on my lips. Even if Grant chooses to get rid of his ex-girlfriend, I won't get back together with him. I just want to see what kind of expression the man who says he loves me will have when he betrays me. I want to remember this disgusting moment and then completely sever the last shred of feeling I have for him. Since I've been home all day, my 2 kids have become very attached to me. It just so happens to be my son's birthday party these days, so I'm going to take this opportunity to win them over even more. The other kids downstairs are almost here with their parents. I just finished my makeup and changed into my dress. Before I could even go downstairs, my son and daughter dragged me into the bedroom. Looking at their excited little faces, I thought they had some little secret to tell me. I had barely crouched down when they immediately turned around and ran outside. The door slammed shut. For a moment, I thought they were playing a game with me. I smiled helplessly and coaxed softly. Hurry up and open the door for Mommy. The other kids outside must be getting impatient. The 2 children didn't answer me. They just laughed loudly outside. I heard several footsteps coming upstairs. Then Grant's somewhat stern voice reached my ears. What nonsense are you spouting? Who told you to lock Mom up? Grant tried the doorknob a few times, but couldn't open it. He pressed his ear against the door and said softly, Lily, don't be afraid. I'll go get the key and let you out. No, I can't let Mom out. My son's eyes widened, and he loudly protested. Mom's always there for my birthday. It's so boring. This time I want Aunt Laura to blow out the candles with me. Anyway, Mom will just celebrate the same thing with me next time, or maybe I should wait until my sister's birthday and have Mom celebrate with her. I thought my son's words had already pierced my heart, but my daughter's rejection left a gaping hole in my fragile heart. I want Aunt Laura too. I don't want a mother anymore. I wish Aunt Laura could be my mother. Nearly a month of pampering and flattery made me seem so ridiculous at this moment. Laura, standing outside the door, embraced my son and daughter with a deeply moved expression, choking back tears as she said, "Nolan, Nellie, Aunt Laura, your affection is enough for me. I dare not ask for more. After all, I am just an outsider in this family." Grant, who had been silent for a long time, he finally spoke. His voice was tinged with heartache. "Laura, I've wronged you all these years. It's just a birthday party. You have a right to represent my son's mother." The man paused, then turned and knocked on the closed door. "Lily, since it's Nolan's choice, don't upset him on his birthday. Get a good night's sleep in your room, and I'll bring you a slice when we cut the cake." The sounds outside ceased. I leaned weakly against the door, closing my eyes to hold back my tears. I made my decision. The two children would belong to their father. Gran didn't open the door for me until the banquet ended. It was completely silent downstairs. It was as if everyone had left. I left my phone in the cloakroom and couldn't reach anyone. I initially thought Gran had probably taken the two children out for a stroll again, but it was already dark and they still hadn't returned. The entire villa was without power. As the last glimmer of light on the horizon vanished completely, the house was plunged into darkness. But the lights were still on in the villas not far away. The power had been cut off. Who could it be? I think I know. Gran knew that I'd been locked in a closet by the nanny when I was a child. Even now, I hadn't shaken off that habit. I huddled under the covers, curled up into a tiny ball. Never before had I so longed for Gran to come back, but he didn't. Time ticked by, and dawn broke. Gran hadn't returned all night. Finally resigned to breaking my leg, I jumped from the second floor. A piercing pain shot through my leg. I sat on the floor, laughing and crying at the same time, thinking about so many things. I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to become Lily, sitting on the floor, only crying and pathetic. I want a divorce. Gran returned a week later. He and his family of four had gone on a trip abroad. Before boarding the plane, Gran did remember that I was still stuck in the room. He considered changing his ticket to the next flight, but seeing the somewhat disappointed look on the woman beside him, he hesitated. Laura, who had been by his side for 5 years, had never been as happy as she was today. He didn't want her hard-won happiness to be interrupted. He thought, I have my phone with me. Anyone can let me out. Without further hesitation, Gran boarded the plane. During this time, my phone went unanswered and my text messages went unread. He became uneasy and considered returning home sooner, but Laura hadn't had enough fun yet. Although Gran suggested ending the trip early, the woman didn't object, but clearly dampened her spirits. Oh well, Gran told himself. If something really happens to me, my first contact will definitely be my husband. Gran thought. No news means nothing happened. He relaxed and joined the 3 people playing around. So when he returned to the country, my legal team came knocking on his door. Gran was stunned. Then, when he learned that I had broken my leg and was hospitalized, because of him, the man ran outside like a madman. Children watched Grant's car speed away. A flash of jealousy crossed her face. Then she hailed a taxi and quickly gave chase. Grant rushed into the ward, his face covered in sweat. The first thing he saw was my right leg hanging from the foot of the bed in a cast. His eyes instantly welled up with tears. He reached out a trembling hand, trying to touch my wound, but his touch never came. After a long pause, Grant turned and wiped his tearful eyes before coming to me. Lily, I'm sorry I've made you suffer. The man raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face, leaving a large red swollen patch. He had used considerable force. I watched quietly, feeling no satisfaction. At that moment, I knew I had completely given up on Grant. Whether he was happy or in pain, nothing could stir my emotions anymore. I looked away from the man and said calmly, "Grant, let's get a divorce." A failed marriage rarely ends amicably, but for the sake of our 2 children, I can avoid a complete falling out with him. The children will live with you from now on. I don't want them anymore. My decision to give up made Grant realize my determination to divorce him. The man kept his head down, not looking up for a long time. I heard him ask, "Why did we end up like this?" Did he really not know? He should have foreseen this day when he concealed Laura's existence. I'm not magnanimous. I hold grudges. Grant, choosing to divorce you is already a huge concession I've made. Grant still refuses to divorce. After much deliberation, he decided to bring me into his family of 5. Lily, you really misunderstand Laura and me. This trip abroad was suggested by the 2 children. They insisted that Laura come along, and I couldn't stop them, he explained. After I showed him the surveillance video on my phone, everything went silent. The footage showed Grant and Laura alone together. They were being affectionate in the restaurant, feeding each other. They were snuggling together on the sofa, watching TV and eating fruit. The 2 of them even went into the same bathroom and didn't come out for half an hour, and all of this happened after I found out about Laura. I can't bear to think about it. What did they do during the 5 years Laura was away from home? During the day, I turned off my phone, looking at Grant, whose face had turned pale. My tone was no longer one of negotiation. If you don't agree to a divorce, I'll post all of this. I want everyone to see. If I've misunderstood you and Laura. Grant's thin lips tightened, and his gaze turned cold. He said to me in an accusing tone, "Lily, do you know how important reputation is to a woman? I've known Laura longer than you have, and I consider her family. Can't family members do these things?" The man got angry with me instead. He stood up from the bedside, looking down at me. "Delete all these videos and sincerely apologize to Laura, and perhaps I can forgive your rash behavior this time." I glanced at him a few times, then suddenly laughed. Amidst my laughter, I reopened my phone. Immediately, I sent the pre-edited 10-minute video to the Hua family group chat. Within a minute, Grant's phone was ringing nonstop. "Next up, it'll be your company group chat." I lay in my hospital bed, my finger lightly hovering over the send button. I remembered Laura always brought you meals to your company. All your employees should know her by now. My hand trembled slightly, and the video call was sent anyway. Grant saw the video I posted at that moment and suddenly grabbed my wrist. It hurt. "Lily, Laura is just a helpless woman who has lost her support. How could you use such vicious methods against her?" I blinked innocently. It was a provocation. Grant and I stared at each other for a full minute. Then he let go of me. "Fine, I'm divorcing you." "Dad, are you divorcing Mom?" My son, holding my daughter's hand, stood at the door of the hospital room. I was wearing a hospital gown, my leg in a cast. My daughter burst into tears the moment she saw me like that. To be honest, I had very mixed feelings about my 2 children, some resentment and some awkwardness as an adult arguing with children. They locked me in my room that day, and my heart sank. It hasn't warmed up yet, but I still forced a smile. "Nellie, don't worry. Mommy will be fine in a few days." My daughter's tears welled in her eyes as she let go of her brother's hand and ran towards me. A chubby little hand gently touched my arm. Laura, who was outside, followed us in with her son. The woman's face beamed with undisguised joy. Clearly, she had heard Grant's words about divorce. Her son was still intently watching Grant. The man looked into his son's eyes and said, "It's your mother who wants a divorce from Dad, and Dad can't stop her." The son then turned his gaze to me. "Even if it means abandoning me and my sister, Mom is still going to divorce Dad?" I didn't want to lie to him. Yes, Mom wants a divorce. Even if they choose to live with their father, I will never shirk my responsibility as a mother. The next second, my son, without warning, threw the Ultraman toy he was holding at my face. He yelled at me, "Since Mom doesn't want me and my sister, then my sister, and I don't want Mom either." He pulled away his sister, who was clinging to me, and asked with glaring eyes, "Sister, do you want to leave with Mom or with Dad?" "Me and Aunt Laura." My daughter's eyes filled with tears. She looked at me, then at the 3 people beside her, and finally sobbed, "Then I don't want my mom anymore either." With that, my son picked her up and ran out. Laura gave me a smug glance, then feigned anxiety and chased after them. Only Grant and I remained. He stared intently at me. "Lily, I hope you'll never regret today's outcome." I turned my head and wiped my wet eyes. "Don't worry, I'll never regret it." On the day of the divorce, Grant brought both children, but only he got out of the car. The car windows were tightly closed. The two children probably didn't want to see me. I sniffled, my nose stinging, and went into the Civil Affairs Bureau with Grant. When we got to the final, I stepped back. Grant asked me again, "Lily, is it too late to back out now?" I ignored him and completed the formalities, holding the divorce certificate in my hand. I felt a huge sense of relief. The feeling of being bound finally disappeared. Perhaps it was because the two children saw the divorce certificates in Grant's and my hands. Suddenly, the car door opened, and two small figures ran towards me. One grabbed my arm, and the other hugged my leg. They both cried out, "Mommy, please don't abandon Daddy, and please don't abandon us." I looked into the distance, ignoring their cries. It felt like an eternity. Grant, standing nearby, picked up the two children, his face ashen and dark. His words were hurtful. "Lily, you don't deserve to be a mother. Don't ever see these two children again." He then put the children in the car. Laura sat behind me, gently hugging and comforting me. She quickly disappeared from my sight. Since the divorce, my son and daughter had unilaterally cut off all contact with me. I want to see them over the weekend, and Laura opened the door for me. She now acts like a real mistress of the house. "Nolan and Nellie don't want to see you. Go back." The two children sat on the sofa, their backs to me. They remained silent. I was afraid Laura would mistreat them, but I still barged in. My son glared at me and slapped my hand away. My daughter avoided me and ran into Laura's arms. It seemed they were doing well now and truly didn't need me anymore. I stood up and slowly picked up my bag and phone from the ground. "Nolan, Nellie, are you saying Mom won't be coming to see you anymore?" After receiving their unanimous reply, I bought a plane ticket and flew to the overseas branch office. Actually, back when I gave birth to my daughter, the company's board of directors wanted me to come and manage the branch for a few years. But for the sake of my child, I kept putting it off. When I finally got here, I discovered that the branch's operations and management were completely chaotic. There were no rules or regulations whatsoever. I had originally planned to take a year, but it took me 3 years to finally return to China. During that time, my two children still hadn't forgiven me. But despite my disgust, I called Grant once to ask how they were doing. They were doing well. I specifically instructed Grant to keep a close eye on Laura. "Don't let her bully the children." The man scoffed and mocked me. "Lily, don't try to taint Laura with your filthy thoughts. She already considers Nolan and Nellie her own children." I had no choice. Because of my distrust of Grant, I secretly hired a nanny at a high salary. I went to great lengths to arrange for her to enter the Ho family home. I guess I fulfill my responsibility as a mother. On the day I returned to China, Grant told me not to come see the two children. When he called to tell me, my best friend was right beside me. She was afraid I'd be upset, so she insisted on taking me shopping. It was the weekend, and Grant and Laura had also gone shopping. Luckily, my best friend was with me. Otherwise, I would have looked so intimidating standing alone against this family of 4. Their son has grown quite tall, with slightly curly hair falling down his forehead. He looks like a real little handsome boy. My daughter has grown quite a bit, with 2 little braids in her hair. She's very quiet and adorable. Although I can see their photos on my phone, witnessing their growth and changes in person is still very moving. I move closer. "Nolan, Nellie, Mommy's home." The two little ones stared at me silently. I knew they were strangers to me. I took a step forward, then stepped back. My son left first. He didn't glance at me, walking straight past me. My daughter followed behind her brother, also brushing past me. Grant waved his hand, and Laura, her face pale, left too. He was the only one left. His gaze, cryptic, lingered on me. It was as if he were saying, "See, Lily, this is the punishment you paid for choosing divorce." As if he'd had enough of my disheveled state, the man shoved me aside without a second thought. My best friend patted my shoulder hesitatingly, asking, "Lily, do you regret it?" My gaze fell on the retreating figures of the two children. I smiled. No regrets. Although I was feeling down for a few days because my two children were ignoring me, it didn't affect my normal life and work. That day, my best friend couldn't get away from an important meeting and had to ask me to attend her son's parent-teacher conference on her behalf. I hadn't expected it. My son, Nolan, was in this class too. The moment I entered the classroom, my eyes met Grant's for a fleeting moment. His expression was one of shock, anger, and perhaps even a touch of sadness. I saw his hands digging into his flesh, his eyes meeting his son's. They stared intently at me the entire time. The parent-teacher meeting had just ended, and I hadn't even left the classroom when the father and son stopped me. My son, Nolan, pouted on the verge of tears. "Do you have another child now? So you don't want me and my sister anymore?" I looked at my son earnestly. "Nolan, feelings are mutual. If you're good to others, they'll be good to you in return. Mommy is the same way. My son has been smart since he was little. I knew he could understand. It was him who didn't want me, his mother, first on the day he met Lily at the parent-teacher conference. An unprecedented panic completely overwhelmed Grant in an instant. Countless questions flooded his mind. Was she married? What was the child to her? Why was Lily even more radiant and captivating than before now that she was gone from him? And the child, Grant couldn't understand. He knew perfectly well how important the two children were to Lily. So even though she was somewhat reluctant to have a second child, Grant coaxed and pleaded with her until she did. He was afraid that one day Lily would find out Laura was his ex-girlfriend and she would divorce him. Grant wasn't lying. Nothing had happened between him and Laura, but he had to admit that. Some of their interactions had indeed crossed the line. First love, ex-girlfriend living under the same roof. These factors made Grant consider Laura a member of the family. Family members, isn't it normal to be close to them? But after divorcing Lily, he suddenly realized that if Lily had brought her ex-boyfriend home and lived with him for 5 years, Grant would probably have gone crazy. He overlooked the fact that, in a sense, Laura was actually Lily's rival. So during the 3 years they were apart, Grant deliberately kept his distance from Laura. Not only him, but even his son and daughter began to distance themselves from Laura. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You only realize what you've got when you've lost it. He pretended to be high and mighty, refusing to admit his mistakes, and kept waiting for Lily to apologize to him. In front of the two children, Grant gave Laura a sum of money. "Laura, you can go now. This money is enough to ensure your quality of life from now on." Ignoring the woman's crying, he led his son and daughter, who were on his side, upstairs. At 11 p.m., Laura, who said she needed to pack her things and couldn't leave until tomorrow, handed him a glass of water. Unsuspecting, Grant drank it and then fell into a deep sleep. The next time I heard from Grant was on a news report. He had been drugged by his housekeeper, damaging his virility. He would likely never be able to have children again. And the housekeeper who drugged him was Grant's ex-girlfriend, Laura. She was sent to prison by the man and was charged with multiple crimes, including coercion and extortion. Grant hired the best legal team, determined to ensure Laura received the most severe punishment. Later, Grant sent his two children to me and paid an exorbitant child support fee. He quit all his work at the company and began various treatments, both domestically and internationally. He simply had no time to take care of the children. At first, the two children weren't very close to me. I didn't try to win them over. The rift between my son and daughter requires a joint effort from both of us, not just one-sided efforts from me. Grant hasn't been back for 7 years. It's like he's avoiding me. Even when he video calls the children, it's always when I'm not around. The two children had also asked Grant this question. The man nearing 40 choked up for a long time before finally saying, "Daddy's afraid. I feel inferior in front of your mother."